Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to another interview on the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. My name is Krishna Prem Rupa Das. I'm serving here at ISKCON Zurich. And today I have a wonderful devotee and an old friend of mine and a very senior devotee from the German Yatra, His Grace Vaidyanatha Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna Prema Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Wonderful to have you here today. His Grace Vaidyanatha Prabhu has quite an amazing devotional history or journey. We just spoke a little bit about it. Prabhu joined the movement in 72, met Srila Prabhupada first time in Paris, and then spent the first years of his Krishna consciousness in different centers in Germany itself, but then also spent considerable time in Scandinavia, served in Sweden, in Denmark, served as a temple president in Copenhagen, was also serving at ISKCON Radhadesh as the first temple commander, later moved to Villa Brindavan, Italy, spent time in Colombia, also lived in the USA. So you can see it's a really quite a broad journey. And then also in 1984, Prabhu got married with his wife Nitya Sita Mataji, is still married till today, and they have been living and raising their children first in New Brindavan, then later in Miami Beach, Florida. And since about 30 years, Prabhu and his wife have been back in Germany. And today, Vaidyanatha Prabhu lives in Hamburg, and he serves the National Council of ISKCON Germany in Austria. He's responsible for the education in the Yatra. He's also very active in interfaith dialogues, especially in Hamburg, but also serves as one of the board members of the ISKCON Communication Europe, and always has been studying Srila Prabhupada's books, and just also at the moment doing his Bhakti by Bhav course. Of course, Vaidyanatha Prabhu himself is a teacher. He teaches Bhakti Shastri, ISKCON disciple courses, and many other seminars. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're looking forward to hear about your story and your realizations on the importance of reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Like always, I'd like to start with hearing from you about what was your first encounter with Srila Prabhupada's books? Where did you met the devotees, or how did you got the first book, and which book was it, and what do you remember, how it changed your life?
Yeah, thank you very much. That was in 1971 in Germany. I got the first German Sri Ishopanishad from the temple in Hamburg. And it was given to me by my brother, who is now known as Sachinandan Swami. And I read that book, and I got the first encounter with Krishna conscious philosophy. But at that time, I was still going to school and in the military at that time. Actually, I wasn't going to school at that time still, doing my final examination. And I found this a little bit old-fashioned, I must say. I didn't catch on at first sight. And also the presentation, I found the translation wasn't so good, I thought. Because in school, we had been taught to word things very nicely, and I was thinking I should make marks. This is wrong. This is spelled wrong like this. So my first impression, unfortunately, wasn't so very good. But the second impression I got with Back to Godhead magazine, and that was when I went for holidays in Holland. I took a bicycle tour around Holland, about 2 weeks, and one night I slept in Amsterdam in the park, Wandel Park, where there were many hippies at that time. And when I got up at around 9 o'clock in the morning, there were these devotees chanting. And actually I was woken up by the sound of cymbals, of cartels. And I was waking up, and the devotee came to my sleeping bag and handed me Back to Godhead magazine, where I again saw the picture of Srila Prabhupada. And I thought, well, I saw that before, interesting. Anyway, I put that Back to Godhead into my bicycle luggage. And when I came home to Hamburg, I showed it to my brother. who wasn't a devotee at that time yet, and he showed me the same Back to Godhead magazine which he had been given in Hamburg, in one of the shopping malls in Hamburg. So we thought that was funny that we were showing each other the same magazine. But it's true that he caught fire first. Although he is 2 years younger than me, he joined the movement 1 year before me. So that was the very first encounter. And for me, things always take a little longer. So unfortunately, I thought Prabhupada looked very established. He looked the age of my grandfather. And I couldn't really understand how somebody could be so enthusiastic about Srila Prabhupada's movement, as enthusiastic as my younger brother was. So it took a little more time. That was my very first encounter.
And what then later on actually convinced you to actually join the movement? And
yeah, after school, I went to the military and the draft like this. And I kept reading philosophical books because after all, I was interested in philosophy. I studied various books about Buddhism. I found that these printed books, they were easier to read than Srila Prabhupada's books in translation, I found. So that's why I read those. And I had some experience with consciousness-raising drugs, as we saw. And I did have some drug experiences which made me realize the relativity of this material world. And also during the time of my army, when I was there, I thought that taking a profession wouldn't be much different than being in the army. So I couldn't really conceive of a very enthusing career in the material world, although our parents wanted me to study. They actually wanted me to become a physician, a doctor, a medical doctor. But I didn't find this very interesting. And actually, I delved into myself and tried to analyze, what do I really want? What do I really want to know? And I thought, really, what I want to do in my life, it should have something to do with the soul, with self-realization, with the actual truth. Now, that was my perception. That was my interest, even when I was much younger, something religious like that. And then regularly visiting the temples, I found that the devotees were answering my questions better than anyone else. And also the way they lived attracted me. You could actually practice, you could live a simple life, you could live like a monk, and you could go out, distribute, and actually expand the movement. Very promising pioneer work was lying ahead. So I found that was something that was needed. Whereas my realization was that anything else that was being done and offered, all these professions and apprenticeships, I thought that is already being done by so many people. So I wanted to do something really new. And Srila Prabhupada's movement, Srila Prabhupada gave us an opportunity to start something really fresh and at the same time spiritual, as we soon found out. So this is how I joined the movement. And then my first encounter was with Srila Prabhupada in 1972. We later wrote a book, Srila Prabhupada and his disciples in Germany. And that chapter where Srila Prabhupada arrives at the airport is called The Paris Sunrise, because Srila Prabhupada really, to me, subjectively, I thought that finally I could see a saint, because I felt that Srila Prabhupada had something like an aura or effulgence, like saints have around the head, but Prabhupada in his entire body. So finally, you find a real saint. And then I thought, well, just stay with these people. And then, of course, I made another attempt to study and understand Srila Prabhupada's books.
And after meeting Prabhupada personally and getting the association with devotees, I guess, then you dived more into the books. And now, in these early days of ISKCON in the 70s, how was the reading practice? I mean, we always hear that how devotees were preaching, doing Harinam the whole day. Can you tell us a little bit from these early days? I mean, there were also not so many books actually available. The books, they were just coming out one after the other. Would you like to tell a little bit about the reading practice in those days?
Yeah. First of all, we had some books. We had the the Bhagavad Gita was there. We had, but it wasn't translated to German yet.
Okay.
And then there was the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam came out in 3 thin booklets. It came out in thin booklets, chapter-wise. It was published chapter-wise before they actually had the entire volumes. And we had them in English, and also the Krishna book we had in English. The only book that was translated to German was the Sri Ishopanishad. So all of us, we were kind of struggling with English, because I mean, I had studied English at school for 7 years, and I was actually quite good at English. And so I could understand, but with effort. And so, as I said before I joined, I had already read a lot of books, different philosophies, and also at school we had to read so much. And I was a little bit overloaded from all this reading, from all this theory. And I thought now I should delve into practice more. But since I knew English, they put me into the editorial staff, and we translated back to Godhead articles for the German magazine. And I was busy with translating from English to German. And so I must say that except for reading back to Godhead articles, first half year I didn't do much reading, except for the classes. After some time, we were asked to give classes. I remember my first class, how I spoke about eternity, bliss, and knowledge, and how it would be so nice to experience it. That was my first topic in class, reading one verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Then after half a year, my mind was cleared enough. I still had to get rid of some drug residue from my mind, But after about half a year's healthy living, nice prasadam all the time and getting accustomed to the devotional living, then I actually started reading Bhagavad Gita in English.
Now, Prabhu, you have been practicing Krishna consciousness now for almost 50 years. It's a very long time, and still you're very enthusiastic for studying and teaching. What gives you the enthusiasm or to actually every day take a book and read in Prabhupada's books? How you feel? What is the importance of actually reading regularly?
Well, after I started reading, actually I read more and more. And I got a taste for reading Prabhupada's books. And especially first 2 years I spent at the temple, I learned how to go out, distribute back to Godhead, to Harinam. And then, like most of the devotees, I was sent on book distribution or paraphernalia distribution. And at that time, we always carried Prabhupada's newly published books, Srimad Bhagavatam mostly, in our distribution bag. And I did most serious study I did on Sankirtan or on park benches during the noon break, or in staircases, in houses or office building. During the noon break, sit down in the staircase, get out your Bhagavatam and study the Bhagavatam in the staircase, This is how, in the beginning, most of the devotees did their most intensive study. Also, on Sankirtan, we were actually ordered to read Srila Prabhupada's books 1 hour per day in the morning. So we would have an ordinary morning program with 16 rounds chanting, Gurastakam prayers, and Bhagavatam lecture. And on top of that, we had 1 hour of private reading, Srila Prabhupada's books. And this was in the beginning how we were brought up in the philosophy and got this attachment to hearing Bhagavatam. This is how it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, that combination of actually sharing Krishna consciousness and at the same time also absorbing it. It seems that was quite a natural way to do things in these early days.
Yeah. So this is where I got my taste from. The importance of reading Srimad Bhagavatam, comes from that time. I remember myself studying Prabhupada's books on park benches and in staircases, and going out and distributing Prabhupada's books. This combination. This is where I got the connection to Srila Prabhupada's books, to Prabhupada's Vani also, his instruction, because German devotees did not get to see Srila Prabhupada very often. He didn't spend much time in Germany, only went twice, once in 69, once in 74. Then I saw him as I said, in Paris, 1972, Stockholm, Sweden, 1973, for a few weeks. Then Schloss Rettershof, Germany, 1974. Then last time I saw him was in India, 1975, Vrindavan, Mayapur. And I didn't get to see him in 1976, whereas quite a few of my godbrothers went to London to see Srila Prabhupada then.
Yeah. Since you just spoke about having Prabhupada's physical association, seeing him, of course we know that it's Vapu and Vani, and Vani is always continuing to be existing, especially through the books also. How do you experience or access Srila Prabhupada in his books? It is said that we can experience or associate with Prabhupada. You as a Prabhupada disciple who has personally seen him, and now you associate through the books. You like to share some realization on this topic?
Yes. As I said, as we didn't get to see Srila Prabhupada often, especially we German devotees were dependent on the Vani. So in the beginning, we were always thinking, when will Srila Prabhupada publish his next book so we get to read it, This was our connection. Then new Bhagavatam came out, third canto, fourth, fifth, sixth, like this. And we would get the first copies that were shipped to Germany. And Prabhupada is writing such interesting purports, At least we could appreciate Srila Prabhupada as a very interesting author. And besides the stories of the Bhagavatam, we found so thrilling also. And so this was our connection to Srila Prabhupada. And also in that way, in some way we got to know him, because you can see when you read Prabhupada's books, he makes some personal remarks. He has a certain attitude, certain mood and mission. And like this, we got acquainted with Srila Prabhupada through his books mainly.
Yeah. You just mentioned mood and mission. When in the systematic study of Bhakti Shastri and other scriptures, we have these study aims, knowledge, understanding, then all of the Shastra Chakshu, applying scriptures. But then we also have this mood and mission. Like one goal of studying Prabhupada's book is to better understand what Prabhupada actually wanted to do, what was his mood and mission. Would you like to speak on that a little bit? I mean, in a personal realization example, what does it actually mean to understand Prabhupada's mood and mission better through the reading process?
Yes. When we went to Denmark as pioneers, we had the first part of, we had the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 7th chapter, entitled Lord Chaitanya in 5 aspects. That means referring to the Pancha Tattva. And there it is explained that Lord Chaitanya opened the house of God, love of God, and distributed the contents freely. And this was our guideline for spreading Krishna consciousness. Just get it out some or other. We felt that was Prabhupada's mission, because he was really behind it. And he wanted his books to be given to everybody. I mean, that is quite unusual. Most authors, they have a certain audience in mind. They're writing, a book. The book goes into the bookstore, and somebody who likes the contents, he'll buy the book, But Srila Prabhupada wanted his books to be given out to everybody. that is quite a unique vision or mood for an author. And this is what we lived by. And it was, of course, Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. And also, originally, it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and mission. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood and mission and Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission are the same. Then that's one thing, that get the message out to everybody. Second, which I found special about Srila Prabhupada, in spite of that, still the emphasis of Varnashram Dharma. Of course, the topic Varnashram Dharma is being disputed. But in my case, I felt that Srila Prabhupada wanted me to be situated in Varnashram Dharma because he personally told me the only direct instruction that he ever gave me, that was to sit properly. Sit properly. Later, he only spoke these, he spoke about 5 words to me. He said, in Amsterdam, when I was leaning against the wall as a hippie with my arms, around my knees. So, and kind of looking at the installation ceremony, which was a little bit chaotic. It's there in Satsuma.
Oh, you were there at this?
I was there, yes.
Okay.
I noticed it was a little chaotic, and especially what I noticed was that Srila Prabhupada looked unhappy or even angry. He kept chastising the priest. This is not right. That is not right. And Prabhupada didn't have a happy, harmonious demeanor at that time. I noticed. And I'd been reading these books, these Buddhist books, and there I had learned that a holy man is always happy, always peaceful, always undisturbed. Huh? And here I see Srila Prabhupada, he looks even angry, he's kind of shouting. And so I thought, I was doubting, maybe he's not a holy man after all, because he's becoming unsatisfied. So I was looking at him, studying him with my knees around the knees, with my arms around the knees, leaning against the temple wall. And while I was thinking that, Prabhupada turned to me, he turned to me, looked directly into my eyes and said to me, "It is an offense to sit before the deities like this." And he sat up in his Vyasasana, like I had been doing, arms around the knees and so on. And he said, "Sit properly." So that's the only direct instruction that Prabhupada gave me. I mean, these few words, I thought about them a million times because they were really the only Vapu instruction from Prabhupada's Vapu. And I interpreted that to be many things. Amongst others, Prabhupada wanted me to be situated properly, properly. And then for me to be situated properly was to take some help from the Varnashram Dharma system, which in Prabhupada over and over again, many places in his book speaks about the Varnashram Dharma system, that human life starts when one follows the Varnashram Dharma system. So I find that Prabhupada is putting more emphasis on that than many other previous acharyas. So that's for me is the main thing of Prabhupada's mood and mission.
Thank you so much for sharing this also personal stories. Now, when it comes to reading, many devotees face difficulties when they try to read regularly. They may lack time, or when they take a book, then they feel tired or distracted. How do you, your personal reading practice, you like to share something from your own practice, or maybe you like to share some insights or some tips how to overcome any obstacles in making that effort to actually read daily?
Yes, because reading is easy when you live in a temple. But since 1989, I've been living outside with my family and working. And but I still, this thrust from temple life still was with me for many, many years. Like I kept reading Prabhupada's books on trains, for example. And also I've always, even when I worked, I did many services with devotees, gave classes regularly at our Hamburg temple and other temples even. We visited large Hare Krishna temples as much as we could. We went on pilgrimage in India a few times and in the USA. So there I felt when one works with devotees, then in order to be able to work with devotees, you've got to read the books, because that's the foundation of our service. If we are not fresh in the philosophy, if we haven't read just a few hours ago, in the morning maybe, then we won't be in Srila Prabhupada's mood, because Prabhupada's mood and mission are in his books. So that's why I read as much as I could. After some years, sometimes I experienced some difficulty in my being able to concentrate on the books. However, that was counteracted by me taking up the service of studying Bhakti Shastri. First of all, I acquired my Bhakti Shastri title. And then also I started teaching Bhakti Shastri title. So at least the Bhakti Shastri books, Bhagavad Gita, Sri Upanishad, Nectar of Instruction and Nectar of Devotion, I'm reading regularly in preparation for the lessons, for example. But still, I found after some time recently, last year, I found that wasn't enough. I felt I needed to read more Bhagavatam. Actually, I was thinking, well, you're reading the Bhakti Shastri books, but what about Bhagavatam? What to speak of Chaitanya Charitamrita? So I felt I needed to do more reading, and picking up the Bhagavatam I felt was becoming difficult for me. I read a purport or two, then, okay, I know this already. Like this mood creeps in after we had read it a few times. Then I thought, you got to do something about this, because Bhagavatam is supposed to be eternally fresh. I was realizing, I was noticing that I wasn't perceiving this. I thought, okay, read a sloka. It's not eternally fresh anymore. I thought, you're probably wrong. Maybe I was thinking I was doing something wrong. And then I applied, this new opportunity came to study Bhakti Vaibhava online from the VIHE. And it is a real difference if you read the Bhagavatam in your armchair, in your own home, read one or two verses with purports, or you read the Bhagavatam in association with devotees, especially in association with learned devotees who know more about Bhagavatam than yourself. So I found that studying Bhagavatam under guidance is so helpful. And I've been studying that since mid of January this year. And I must say, from the beginning, my entire daily schedule completely changed, because it was everything was circled around this study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lessons for 2 hours a day. So then you get to learn the slokas. And I remember I recited newly learned slokas in class here during the Simhachalam festival. It was real success, So anyway, so then I kind of arranged my daily schedule around the study of Bhagavatam. I must say that has really improved my devotional life so much.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's a very actually deep point you make. Also, that you said that when you realized that there was not so much taste, then you immediately felt like, oh, something is wrong with me. And that's kind of, because some people then will just think, well, Bhagavatam, just put it back. But you really endeavored. And I think the solution to actually, search the association with devotees, I think it's such a nice, important point, that in the association, it becomes so much easier. And I personally also had the experience when I did my studies. It's so a wonderful experience to study in the association with devotees. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe before we come slowly to an end, since you're also very much into ISKCON communication, it would be interesting to see how you deal with this, because Srila Prabhupada's books are, of course, amazing books, and Prabhupada used the language and then explained very deep philosophical points in an easy way, in an English language, so that we can understand it. At the same time, as we all know, Prabhupada sometimes uses, maybe for people who don't understand or see it as a harsh words, or rascals, and some of the statements might be also difficult to digest for some people. How do you deal with difficult statements in Prabhupada's books, also in your work when you do interfaith programs? And maybe people would ask you, or do you like to say something about that?
Yes. As I said, initially I'm working with the school authorities in Hamburg for religious instruction. And when presenting quotes from Srila Prabhupada, I have to be very selective. Mostly it's better to reword things, because it's true that not really Prabhupada also, but Shastra, is kind of little rough because it's so old. It was 5,000 years ago. Srimad Bhagavatam was written down, and people had a different mood. They were more straightforward. Nowadays, people are very diplomatic in this age, and if one wants to do communications, one has to be diplomatic also. One has to say things in a pleasing way, as it is explained in the 17th chapter, Bhagavad Gita. Austerity of speech means to say the truth, but in a pleasing way, not to hurt anybody. So we have to really know whom to talk to in which way. That will depend very much on the person you talk to. Serving, from the Bhagavatam directly to somebody who is not so much interested by nature, but who only has to do his job to compose the school curriculum, for example, won't be a good way. Even Prabhupada, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 18th chapter says that this science should not be instructed to those who are not austere, devoted like this. So that doesn't mean one cannot preach Krishna consciousness, but you have to talk according to time and circumstances. You have to present the same truth that is in the Bhagavad Gita, but in such a way that it's easy to understand. So therefore, some of the statements of scripture, as well as Srila Prabhupada's statements, have to be reworded when you preach. Because there's some statements in Prabhupada books that sound controversial even to devotees. Much has been said about that, and there is hermeneutics science and seminar about how to deal with these things. My personal impression is also that Prabhupada's books, at the time that he wrote them, were not properly edited. I think that before printing some of Srila Prabhupada's statements, the editors should have talked to Srila Prabhupada and should have said, Srila Prabhupada, people will misunderstand this if you say it like that, if you print it like that. And they would probably would have had to suggest to Srila Prabhupada, maybe we say it in a different way. And as far as I know, Srila Prabhupada, and from the ways he's been dealing, there are enough biographies, he would have relented. He would have worded it differently. That's my impression about some of the statements. Now, of course, the books are printed, and every time somebody makes a change, it's a big thing. But of course, mainly when they change the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam, that's the big thing. What about changes in Ishopanishad or Nectar of Instruction? I tell you, I give Bhakti Shastri classes, and we use different editions of Sri Ishopanishad or Nectar and Instruction. Every edition reads different, but nobody talks about these changes,
Well, that's a very also controversial topic in our movement. We know about that. But yeah, it's true that, I mean, I think Shastra by its nature, and also sadhus, they sometimes speak strong words. And of course, there is also reason for that, to wake up the conditioned soul. But it's also true, it's a cultural issue. Also, like people in India, they just understand that a sadhu is speaking and they humbly listen. If you preach in the West, there needs to be a different approach. And yeah, I guess thank you for sharing your thoughts on this topic, that we do need to see time, place, and circumstances to whom we preach. All right. So, of course, when we speak about reading Srila Prabhupada's books, studying, the goal of reading at some point is also to live. Like there is the book Bhagavat and there's the person Bhagavat. So we're supposed to become, a representative of the books and live according to. How do you make sure to apply what you study and read? Do you have some, tips or some practices to help us to apply actually what we always? I mean, in our movement we have so much wisdom, isn't it, in Srila Prabhupada's books? But then how much do we apply of that?
Yeah, see, my belief is when I study Srimad Bhagavatam, my heart will be purified and automatically application will be much easier. It's not that I read a chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam or read a few verses and say, okay, now Krishna wants us to be like that. No, I believe in the purifying process of studying the scripture, of hearing. Even Srimad Bhagavatam says that will happen. By regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become practically destroyed, and loving devotion service will be established as an irrevocable fact. So I believe that just the study of these scriptures in itself is pure devotional service. A great service is done by reading it. And then you don't have to think about your practice. Automatically, when you study Srimad Bhagavatam in the correct attitude in the morning, the entire day, you will automatically not be deviated by other influences. This is my realization and experience, actually. So I must say, since I've been studying regularly again, my sadhana has immensely improved. Even the time of getting up has immensely, gone back in time. It's getting right up much earlier. And so many other problems that I have had in my spiritual life has disappeared just by, reviving the regular study of Srila Prabhupada's books.
See, that's a very interesting point, that actually just the process of Shravanam, Kirtanam, that process in itself,
Yes.
as Bhagavatam also states, it purifies the heart. So yeah, it's nice to emphasize this point, to have faith that that it's not just an intellectual exercise and to learn, get some information, but actually it is a devotional practice that in itself has an effect on our lives and the way we, Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences and wisdom. Do you have from your side any concluding words or some advices to our viewers, or to our team, how to get this message out, how to encourage devotees to read more often, or any other final realization you'd like to share with us?
Yes, please. My suggestion, recommendation would be, if you feel your spiritual life could be improved, then study courses, Make a Bhakti Shastri course, take a Bhakti Shastri course, or take a Bhakti Vaibhava course. Study in the Association of Devotees. There are so many other courses also being offered. Reading together, or do something systematic in the association with other devotees, and if possible, under the guidance of somebody very experienced in the study. That would be my recommendation, because that is my own experience also.
Mm.
For everything, you need a guide. Like I feel even going to temples, I see many devotees are doing this and that, experimenting with this and that, but they don't have proper systematic guidance. And it becomes a little bit like layman's work, unprofessional, let's say. But if you take guidance, everything is much easier. So start with reading Srila Prabhupada's books regularly. That's what I would suggest.
All right, wonderful. Association of devotees, so important also in the study of the books. Vaidyanatha Prabhu, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your experiences with us. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Okay.
Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,